South Africa relies on poultry as its primary, most affordable source of animal protein. It is the core pillar supporting the nation's food security goals. To meet this unrelenting domestic demand, the industry produces birds at an extraordinary volume. Sustaining this scale requires absolute biological efficiency. Yet, despite a guaranteed consumer base and high efficiency, the local industry is hemorrhaging jobs. Independent, medium-sized farming operations are collapsing under the pressure. These local closures coincide with a massive influx of subsidized dark meat. Exporters from the European Union and Brazil are dumping thousands of tons of chicken into the domestic market at prices far below the local cost of production. The South African poultry market is not failing from a lack of demand. It is being strangled by an asymmetric supply chain that punishes local vulnerability. Survival in this environment dictates absolute vertical integration. Owning every step of the production process is the baseline requirement to remain solvent. This diagram outlines the three specific structural barriers that force this integration: feed commodity pricing, genetic intellectual property, and biosecurity infrastructure. When small-scale farmers attempt to operate independently, they inevitably collapse under the weight of these three capital requirements. Foreign, heavily subsidized markets bypass these constraints entirely. This allows international exporters to aggressively undercut local production costs at the retail level. To understand who goes bankrupt and who survives, we must deconstruct these three structural barriers from the ground up. The local supply chain relies heavily on locally harvested maize as the primary energy source for its flocks. This chart breaks down a broiler's cost structure. Up to 75% of the total production cost is dictated entirely by feed. Relying on imported oilseeds exposes the domestic industry to global price shocks, causing these costs to fluctuate violently. Producers cannot pass these sudden feed price spikes onto low-income consumers. Doing so would destroy consumer demand entirely. This creates a retail trap for small-scale farmers. Lacking bulk purchasing power, they are forced to buy feed through middlemen, paying retail premiums of 50 to 100 rand per bag. Feed costs establish an inflexible economic floor. Without the bulk purchasing power generated by an integrated feed mill, fragmented farmers are mathematically guaranteed to fail. The modern broiler is a product of intense biological engineering, characterized by rapid cellular division and hyper-accelerated muscle growth. As a result, these birds are capable of reaching a market weight of 3 kilograms in just 40 days. This map visualizes the flow of genetic material. Pure parent line stock is highly guarded intellectual property, flowing from international hubs into closed corporate ecosystems. Local access is restricted exclusively to the sterile F1 generation, forcing a permanent dependency on imported fertile eggs. Corporate conglomerates license this top-tier genetics directly. Small farmers, completely locked out of this pipeline, are forced to buy less efficient second-tier checks. Biological efficiency is a proprietary technology that acts as a massive capital barrier to entry. This flowchart maps a fully integrated conglomerate, tracking production from raw feed to processed meats. Controlling every node allows them to absorb price shocks downstream. But when that same shock hits the leaky, fragmented supply chain of an independent farmer, the system instantly fractures. Ultimate control of the product is finalized at the industrial processing and packaging level. Vertical integration provides an economic shield against lethal margin compression. Fragmented farmers operate completely without this armor. The dense concentration of birds required to make these economics work exponentially increases the risk of biological threats. Mitigating this risk requires rigorous biosecurity perimeters, maintained through highly capitalized, specialized infrastructure. Avian influenza acts as the ultimate systemic stress test for this biosecurity infrastructure. Fully integrated firms can absorb the shock of mass culling by spreading the losses across their diverse portfolios. For a non-integrated farmer, a single outbreak results in total, unrecoverable ruin. Disease acts as a brutal economic filter, clearing the market of anyone who lacks massive capital reserves. This diagram illustrates the failure of the technology transfer system. Academic research and state extension services remain siloed, spinning in isolation away from emerging producers. Government interventions frequently fail because they attempt to subsidize isolated nodes, like providing land or birds, rather than building a cohesive supply chain. Public sector veterinary and extension support simply cannot keep pace with the hyper-capitalized, rapidly evolving commercial sector. State interventions collapse because they treat poultry farming as a traditional agricultural act, rather than an advanced industrial supply chain problem. The contract grower model offers a mathematically viable entry point. Here, the emerging farmer is plugged directly into the corporate hub to survive structural barriers. The hub provides critical inputs, bulk feed, F1 genetics, and veterinary support, while absorbing market price shocks on the grower's behalf. In return, the decentralized farmer provides the localized rearing infrastructure, land, and labor. This creates a functional, symbiotic value chain. The true barrier to entry in this industry is no longer access to land or birds. It is access to supply chain infrastructure and genetic capital. Securing South Africa's long-term food security requires moving beyond fragmented farming models and academic theory. The solution lies in building actionable, private-public partnerships that transfer technology directly into the dirt.